Hey guys, I just wanted to say hi and hope everything is going well. Since we can't get together physically, we're going to be kind of teaching lessons virtually. So my hope is that you guys can watch this so that way when we get together on Wednesday nights for our Zoom conversation, then we can kind of talk about what the lesson's about. If you kind of remember, we've been going through this series, Doubt It, where we are learning all about questions and doubts and how God welcomes those questions, that there isn't anything that we can't ask him, and that if we have questions, that the best place to go is to the Bible, and it kind of shows us evidence to our answers. And we kind of have talked about how even though we have questions, sometimes God doesn't always answer them. And kind of see what's going on right now, that a lot of people are having questions about, this virus and the quarantine and with God allowing us to do this and why isn't it stopping? And people just have a lot of questions and some fear and doubts that go with it. And so we're going to kind of finish the series talking about what do we do about that, and how can we go through our lives when we have those doubts and questions. So I want you guys to think about if you've been riding in a car and you see some road signs along the way. Sometimes when you see those road signs, they kind of make sense. And you're like, oh yeah, I know what that means. But sometimes you see the road signs and you're not really sure what they mean. And that's kind of what life is like. We are unclear about where we're supposed to go. We're unsure of what God might be leading us to. And our doubts and our questions can leave us feeling lost and confused. And we just wish that we had something that says, here's what you're supposed to do. Here's the right direction you're supposed to go in. I mean, if we think about it, nobody can see into their future. I'd like to see from a week from now, a month from now. Are we still going to be quarantined? Are we going to be back in school? What is it going to look like? And I can't get those questions, let alone where is it going to be in 10 years from now? You might be thinking about, who you're going to marry, what college you're going to go to, how many kids you're going to have, where you're going to be living, let alone 50 years from now. And you say, hey, I'm going to be retired. What's going on? And we would love to know those answers and know the path we're supposed to take with it. But it just doesn't work like that. God just doesn't lay out a plan book and says, this is what you're supposed to do. As nice and easy as that sounds, that would be great, but it doesn't really work like that. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a look at two people in the Bible who can kind of give us an example of when they have doubts and fears and questions and we're unsure what they were supposed to do, how God kind of helped them to show them the path that they were supposed to be on. So the first one that we are going to kind of look at is the story of Esther. If you don't know anything about Esther, she was this young girl who lived in the kingdom of Persia, and the king, Xerxes, didn't follow God, but there was a lot of people who were Jewish who did live in his kingdom. And one day he got mad at his wife because she went and paraded around in front of a group of officials, and so he kicked her out of the palace and said he was going to get a new wife. And so he gathered all these girls, young girls together, got them all pampered up and had them looking good and kind of lined them up and decided he was going to pick one up out of the lineup, and he decided to pick Esther. Now, Esther was kind of really unsure and uncertain of all of this because she did believe something different than Xerxes, and she wasn't sure what to do. So she kind of relied on a family member who really wasn't her mama or her dad, but someone who kind of took her in. His name was Mordecai. And so he would give her advice, and her attendants would kind of give her advice on what she was supposed to do. And he kind of said, hey, you need to keep quiet that you're a Jew and don't tell them where you kind of come from. And she followed his advice, which was working out well until one day, one of the officials decided that they were going to have this law where everybody had to bow down to this one official, and Mordecai refused to do it. And that made that official mad. And so he decided that he was going to have this law that all Jews were going to be executed and killed because he was mad at Mordecai. So all of them were going to be killed. And so Mordecai had to go speak with Esther and say, hey, you need to go talk to the king to stop this. And she was really frightened and said, I can't go talk to the king. Anybody who goes to talk to him is going to be put to death. And he says, but you need to kind of try. And so he was giving her wisdom and advice and saying, hey, you need to do this for all of the people. That it's not just about you. It's not just about me, but it's for all the Jews. And so she got up enough courage to go and talk to the king and ended up explaining to him that if this law goes into place, that she would be included into one of the Jews being killed. And so Xerxes actually listened, and the law didn't go into effect. And so since Esther had the courage to do that, she saved all of these people. Now, can you imagine what Esther was feeling when she had to make that difficult decision? She could have been put to death herself, but instead, the result is that God listened to her, and she trusted in the people that God had put in her life. And as a result, all these people, lived. It didn't say that God said this is exactly what you're supposed to do, but she listened to the advice of the people that he had put into her life, Mordecai and her attendants, and they were all leading her in the direction and giving her advice of what she was supposed to do. And she spent a lot of time praying to him and asking him and saying, what should I do? And even though he didn't give the advice, it was the people that he had put in her life that was giving her the advice. The second person we're going to look at is Elijah. Now, Elijah was a prophet, and at the time that we look in 1 Kings, he was running for his life because this queen Jezebel was going around killing all the prophets. And so she had said, I'm going to kill you because you have, done all these things. And so he went and hid in this cave, and he just kind of told God, hey, take my life too. I'm no different than all these other prophets who had died. And God kind of came to him and said, nope, this is what you're supposed to do. And oddly enough, when God came to talk to him, there was a fire and an earthquake and all these huge things that came. And instead, God coming into all of those, he came in the form of a gentle whisper. And he wanted Elijah to listen and to say, here, this is what you need to do. I'm going to put these people who are going to help you. And I'm going to have all of these Israelites who are going to be there for you. And Elijah, who had to be scared because he was the only one who was kind of left, and he had to trust in God and say, hey, these people are really going to be the people who help me. And he had to see, are these people really going to do what God says they're going to do? And he had to have on these uncertainties and these questions. And he listened to what God said, and it turned out being okay. In fact, God told him that he's going to be connected with a support system, the group of people that was going to help him. And even though Elijah had been comforted by God directly, God knew that Elijah needed those godly people to kind of help him. And that's kind of where we are. We can talk to God and we can pray to God, but sometimes we need that support system because we can ask God questions, but just like Esther and saying, hey, I have all these questions, and God doesn't really directly come and talk to her, but he does do it in the form of other people and kind of gives them advice. And so I want you guys to kind of think about that. When you're experiencing confusion, uncertainty, and fear, especially like now, it's easy to question what we're supposed to do and why God isn't making our path clear. And it's because of that we need that support system. So I want you to think, this is what your support system should look like. You should have a cheerleader, a counselor, a coach, a mentor, a pastor, a confidant, and prayer support. And we're going to kind of look at what each of those things are. For the cheerleaders, who do you have that you can go to when you need some encouragement and positivity? Who can you trust to give you a pep talk? For a counselor who can always give you great advice, whether you're in a dilemma or have questions or don't know how to move forward, who is it that you can trust to take that next step to say, hey, what am I supposed to do? Who is a coach who can motivate you to keep your progress on your goals, to keep you accountable? Who's a mentor who might be someone who is older than you that kind of makes you want to be a better person, makes you want to make the right decisions, and that you can trust enough to share your details of your life, even if you've messed up, and say, hey, I need some help. Maybe, you might have a person who's the pastor, even if they're not really a pastor, who is guiding you and advising you in faith and helping you develop a deeper relationship. You need a confidant, someone that you can trust with their deepest secrets, someone who you feel is wise and that they're kind of a safe person to kind of talk to. And then your prayer support. This could be a group of people. This could be one person, but someone that you know that you can trust that's going to pray for you, that they're going to have your back. Like right now, this is especially important because with so many people getting sick and you can't really have that physical hug and that need, that you have your people surround you that can pray for you and say, hey, I need some help. So your support team won't guarantee you'll always make right decisions when you're uncertain where God is leading you, but at least they'll help you make good decisions and they'll make those decisions easier. So I want you to kind of think as we wrap this series up, having doubts and questions is normal because you're not alone in your questions. God doesn't shame us for our questions, but gives us the evidence we need in order to believe. And especially when life gets painful and there's disappointing things that happen, our questions don't always get answered, but we can see that God is in the midst of it. And when we're questioning or doubting where God is leading us, God knows godly people can help us with our questions, and that's what he gives us that support system for. So I want you guys to think about that. I hope to see you on Wednesday on Zoom, and hope everybody is staying healthy. Wash your hands and make sure you're keeping your social distancing.